cultures. This is truly what Michigan looks like, and again, this is what democracy looks like. Can I get a show of hands of everybody in the room that plans to vote in the primaries and general elections this year? That's what I'm talking about. If anybody's hand did not go up, I would have called you out. I would have made you stand, and everybody would have pointed. Everybody that rose their hands today, which is everybody in this room, also has a responsibility of taking that message of voting in the primaries and generals to those that don't have that plan. We want to increase that message. Each and every one of you will have a direct impact on our future. A direct impact on immigration and criminal justice reform, a direct impact on our environment, a direct impact on education, and numerous other issues that affect each and every member of the Michigan family. It is truly an honor and a privilege to be here with all of you today. I would like to thank Indivisible for all of their hard work, and Royal Oak Middle School for their hospitality. My name is Hassan Sheikh, and I'm the Executive Director of the Michigan Chapter of Engage. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan, C3 organization geared towards educating, engaging, and empowering the Muslim American community via the political process, and I'm also your MC for the day. Now we envision a future where elected officials interact with their constituents, where elected officials are held accountable, where constituents know that their elected officials are working hard for them, their children, and the future of our beautiful state. This starts with the community getting engaged. This starts here. This is an incredibly important election year, and it is imperative that the Michigan family gets politically educated, engaged, and most importantly, gets to the polls come election time, and it includes the primaries in August. Also, I truly urge everyone here today to continue to support organizations like Indivisible that are working day and night to speak truth to power. There are 13 candidates seeking this congressional seat. We've invited all of the candidates who had announced their candidacy in time for our planning deadline. We did not get a response from Lena Epstein and Clint Kesto. Mike Kowal and Rocky Aurkowski originally accepted, but then declined due to scheduling conflicts. And Nancy Skinner announced her candidacy after the deadline had passed. So we have 7 candidates appearing here this afternoon, and we thank them for participating. Those 7 candidates are Carrie Bentavolio, Tim Greimel, Sunil Gupta, Dan Haberman, Pedro Saad, Cooper Nye, and Haley Stevens. Now let's give a warm welcome before that, let's give a round up for our timekeepers for today, Lisa Dorado and Luis Weller. And let's give a warm welcome to our moderators, Elizabeth Derry and David Jaffe. I would like to thank each and every member of our audience for taking the time and listen to get engaged. Let's make some noise for a great event. Now, if you can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. Please sit down now. We're going to start off today with a rapid-fire question. This is meant to be kind of fun, relaxing. We're going to get a couple political questions, but we're going to get to know our candidates here a little bit more on a personal level. And for the benefit of Mr. Benjamin not having to answer every question first, we're going to kind of mix everything up here. He's going to start the first rapid-fire question, but then I will announce who will start rapid fire questions. We're not going to go in order, okay? So, let's get this show on the road. You can remain seated for this round. You guys don't have to stand up, okay? And we'll have you pass the microphone down as it goes, okay? All right, first question. I'm just going to start off kind of easy. Do you prefer dogs, cats, or neither?
Dog. And by the way, it's pronounced Bentivolio.
Bentivolio, thank you.
Also dogs, although I love cats too, but dogs are our brothers.
Dogs. My wife has a black lab back at home, and we also have a daughter who's begging us to get another one.
Dogs. Mine is a product of the Michigan Humane Society.
Dogs, cats are terrible.
Also dogs. Rest in peace, my dog Stewie.
I like cats. Because they stay up late with me.
Wow, through that entire panel, only one cat person. I'm impressed. I prefer dogs myself. I have a couple of them, although I have nothing against cats. All right, for this next question, Sunil Gupta is going to start. All right. What are your 3 most important issues? Now, before you answer, this is a rapid fire round, so 15 seconds is all we got here, okay? Go ahead.
I want to provide health care for all. I want to make sure that the quality of a child's education doesn't depend on their zip code, and I want to make sure that women receive equal pay for equal work.
Above all issues, I believe that our government must be decent and competent. That goes for healthcare, that goes for education, that goes for the economy. And that's the twin pillars that I look at for all policy issues.
I want a government that serves people instead of special interests. I want an economy that works for everybody instead of only the extremely wealthy. And I want to use our resources in a way that can combat inequality without resorting to raising the minimum wage.
Healthcare, Medicare for all, an inclusive economy that makes everyone a part of it by promoting a livable wage, bringing in immigrants and minorities into the equation as well, and a safe environment that protects our schools and protects our neighborhoods.
I'm focused on a government for the people, by the people, restoring the dignity to this office. I am focused, and my number 1 issue is education and workforce, shining a light on the talent that we have here in Michigan and delivering for our economy.
I think an important issue that we need to be concerned about is cybersecurity, protecting your most important and personal financial and health information, as well as improving our schools and our infrastructure, including roads and bridges.
The biggest threat to our society is the growing inequality we face. We've got to make sure we have an economy that works for everyone. That means investing in education, establishing healthcare as a universal human right, making sure that we have pay equity for both genders, and ensuring that we have a living wage.
Thank you very much. For this next round, Cooper Nye is going to start. All right. Okay, here we go. Ready? Every congressional representative hopes to be assigned to a high-profile committee where he or she can make a publicly visible impact. What one House committee would you most want to be assigned to?
Yeah, that's a great question. Everybody wants a great assignment, and that's how you get things done. But unfortunately, we have committee taxes where we're not appointing the experts to those positions. We're giving it to the people who raise the most money for their parties. So, that said, I would actually pick one of the least popular, which is government reform.
Reminder, we have 15 seconds.
I do have a couple that I'm interested in. One is transportation. I really want to be able to work on infrastructure development and investments in this state, improving and investing in a public transportation system as well here in Southeast Michigan.
I have made the commitment to sitting on the House Education and Workforce Committee. 20% of our district is under the age of 18. That committee, I believe I can make the biggest difference for you and your family. Thank you.
Transportation and infrastructure is a choice, and I think I have that seat when I get back to Congress.
House Energy and Commerce Committee, because it touches on a wide array of economic issues that affect economic equality and making sure that we have expanded opportunity for everyone.
I want to be in a committee in healthcare that's going to focus on driving down the prescription drug prices and once and for all making sure that we can use collective bargaining power to negotiate against the drug companies. I would also be interested in starting a committee that's in charge of taking this country back from Donald Trump.
I'd like to sit on the Judiciary Committee. With my legal background, it can certainly be helpful in pushing back against the packing of the courts with highly incompetent individuals who decide laws for decades going forward with lifetime appointments.
Thank you very much. I believe when everybody walked in today, you were handed red and green cards. Not that we don't enjoy the applause, and I think it's lovely. However, we did hand out those red and green cards so we can streamline this process a little bit more and get to know our candidates a little bit better. So rather than applaud, if you like what your candidate's saying, you can hold up a green card. If you don't like what they're saying, you can hold up a red card. It gives our candidates here a visual and lets us kind of go through questions a little bit faster so you can get to know them a little bit better. Okay, question number 4. Haley Stevens is going to start. All right, it is rare for a freshman member to introduce legislation that becomes law. If you could, what's one piece of legislation that you would introduce that is likely to become law?
I want to propose legislation to lower the age of the Medicare buy-in to age 55, and I believe in a Congress that is going to be Democratic. We can get that done.
I actually passed in the House the Safe and Secure Federal Websites Act, which protects people's personal, financial, and health information. And I'd like to see the other side of the aisle, even though it passed the House with 100% bipartisan support, the Democratic-controlled Senate didn't believe that our most personal, financial, and health information was worth protecting.
I'd like to introduce legislation that would ensure that everybody, regardless of their age, can buy into Medicare.
I would like to introduce legislation that says once and for all we need to close the gender gap in our workforce and pay women equal pay for equal work. Let's do it now.
I'd introduce legislation to remove the bottled water loophole from the Great Lakes Compact, which is what allows Nestle to pump out water for only $200 a year annual permit, which would cost a Troy resident $1.85 million per year for the exact same water, at the same time that we're not giving water to Flint, the city that our state poisoned.
I would introduce the American Anti-Corruption Act, which was created by Lawrence Lessig and other government reform experts to take big money out of politics, to reform our electoral system by banning gerrymandering, instituting ranked choice voting, and above all, just enforcing our laws and preventing corruption.
Gun reform legislation that bans assault weapons and closes the Brady Bill loopholes and others like it.
All right. Thank you. Okay. For our next question, Tim Grimal's going to start. And we're going to ask a little bit more of a personal question this time. If you could interview anyone, dead, alive, famous or not, who would it be?
I would most want to interview Eleanor Roosevelt. She's long been a hero of mine. She was progressive before being progressive was cool. And I just have a very high regard for Eleanor. I think that she's led by example, and she's shown tremendous courage and tremendous vision for this country.
My initial instinct was Nelson Mandela, but immediately I corrected myself. I want to interview my grandmother. My grandmother was a refugee. She raised my mom by basically knitting things and selling them on an open market. so that she could pay for my mother's education, so that my mother could come here and become Ford Motor Company's first female engineer. I want to interview her and ask her how she found that strength.
I'll switch it up a little bit here because we're very serious. I'd like to interview Larry David. We need a little bit more comedy in our world. We have a lot of difficult things going on. I think he's got a great sense of humor.
I would want to meet John Adams, one of our founding fathers who's often overlooked, but warned precisely what we're seeing today, which is two parties that don't serve people and only serve their self-interest. I would also like to meet his wife, who is actually phenomenal. Better writer than he was.
I would love the opportunity to meet and interview Martin Luther King Jr., who led one of the most important movements in this entire country, and learn from him what it takes so that we can continue that conversation and take it forward here in the 21st century.
My first love was history, and the first person who came to mind for me on this one was Henry Clay, the great compromiser. That is something that we are missing in government. Henry Clay guided our country through some very challenging times, and I would jump to interview him.
Okay, excellent. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
Thomas Jefferson, self-educated for the most part, man of the world.
Okay, number 6. So Dan Haberman is going to be starting this round. All right, Mr. Haberman, what is a common misperception that people have of you?
You know, I tell you what, I'll go back to some years ago when I was teaching little kids swimming, and because I have a more casual approach, I think there's an assumption that I wasn't the most hard guy.
I'm gonna have to cut you off, Dave.
I would say because I'm young, people assume I'm just some starry-eyed idealist, and that's true to an extent, but I'm deeply realistic, and I'm talking about big problems, but I have specific solutions that I'd love to share with you.
I seem a lot nicer than I am. People often tell me, how are you going to deal with big problems in D.C.? But then I tell them I worked at the Department of Homeland Security. I've dealt with counterterrorism, national disasters, and community issues in this country. And I can hold my own and even more to any man. So thank you.
That I seem too young to have served as Chief of Staff on the U.S. Auto Rescue, the initiative responsible for saving General Motors and Chrysler 200,000 jobs, that I helped to set up the White House Office of Recovery for auto communities and workers, and that I was endorsed by David Bonnier, the individual who was my age exactly when he was elected Congressman the first time.
Thank you. The list is pretty long, and it's hard to focus on any particular one. Because in politics, you have people that are generally influenced by all kinds of media that's slanted, taken out of context, and biased. So the important thing is find out the truth, get to know the person yourself, do the research. Thank you.
Probably that I'm super serious and formal. I certainly take the challenges we're facing as a country very seriously. I take this campaign very seriously, but I'm actually quite a laid-back guy in my everyday life.
Some of you know my older brother here in this audience. His name is Dr. Sanjay Gupta. He's on CNN, and I am still trying to make my mother proud. And he's already done enough to make 100 Indian mothers proud.
Okay. All right, we're going to go a little more serious this time around. The first person to answer this question is going to be Farid. Okay. Let's find out how you guys feel about this. What is one current federal policy that you want to see changed?
Certainly healthcare and getting Medicare for all, a single-payer healthcare system in this country, and making sure that everyone has access to healthcare because it is a right. And I'd also like to see that conversation change so that we're only talking about it as a right.
universal background checks proposed and implemented immediately. I'd like to see the reinstitution of the assault rifle ban from 1994, and I want to ban the bump stocks.
I would like the House to pass Read the Bills Act so we can have members of Congress actually read bills before they vote for them, as well as single-issue bills. Every bill should be judged on its own merit. Those are important tasks, and I promise to tackle those once elected. Thank you.
Well, I've already talked about universal health care, making sure that everybody, regardless of their age, can buy into Medicare. But in addition to that, since I know another candidate mentioned that too, I'd like to see the minimum wage increased at the federal level and indexed to inflation.
I believe the key to investing and inspiring our students is by investing and inspiring our teachers, which means that not a single dollar of taxpayer money should go to a for-profit charter school.
I'd like publicly financed campaigns that are short, not a year and a half long, so that the voters are deciding, not the dollars, not the corporate interests.
Our economy in virtually every sector is dominated by mega conglomerates that we need to break up, especially in big tech. So we need a 21st century trust buster.
All right. We're gonna start all over again now with Mr. Ventivilio. Ventivilio, right? All right, sorry, I'm gonna get it. All right, let's go a little personal again. What is your least favorite book and why?
Least favorite book.
Least favorite book.
I don't remember it. I put it out of my head because it was so bad. So just forget about it. My favorite, though, I think, is To Kill a Mockingbird.
Probably anything by Ayn Rand, who, more than anyone, has led the conservative movement in this country.
Anything by Bill O'Reilly.
Well, we're going down a trend here. How about anything by Glenn Beck?
I would say A Farewell to Arms because Ernest Hemingway was a misogynist, and that was the closest he ever got to writing a real love story, and he ruined it.
Okay, book/fairy tale. I'm sorry, Cinderella, because I want to see more empowered women on the screen and in books rather than those that are reliant on men to save them.
I'm a bibliophile, so it's hard for me to find a book I don't like, but that freshman year of college book that I read, which was called The Badlands, that went on and on and on, that was my least favorite book.
Okay. All right, next question. Neil Gupta is going to start this one again. We're swinging back around. Okay, since this is Michigan and Detroit, and we are part of the Motor City, what car do you drive?
So I drive an Escape. My wife drives an Explorer. But my first car in high school was a 1987 Thunderbird, and I miss it so much.
I drive a Jeep Wrangler.
Pontiac G6, we need to bring those back.
So we're a divided family. I drive a GM Buick Encore, and my husband drives a Ford Edge.
I drive a beautiful white Ford Escape. Before that, I drove a Jeep Cherokee, and my very first car was an Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme that you can still see on the roads. They go over 100,000 miles.
Ford F-150, and before that a Ford F-150, and before that a Ford F-150.
I drive a Chevy Malibu, before that a Buick Regal, before that a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and my very first car, the one before that, was a regular Jeep Cherokee.
Okay, those are our rapid fire questions. Now, since our candidates answered so quickly, we actually have a little extra time. We're going to do, I believe it's in the brochure, you guys should have read about it. It's an information gathering system trivia challenge that we're doing called Kahoot. When you log in, there should be a pin that that gives you access to it, and the login information is on the back of the brochure, but log into the Wi-Fi, and the guest code is Wi-Fi code guest -ROSD _ Wi-Fi, and you can log into Kahoot. It's kahoot.it, and we're going to ask some questions, and Mackenzie Sepnick is going to come out and ask the questions and run that part of it. Candidates, you are welcome to stay. You're welcome to participate if you want. I don't know if your phone's on you, but this is kind of give you a taste of what the audience has and their opinions as far as these questions go.
Elizabeth. Hi, I'm Mackenzie Setnick. We'll wait till more people log in and we'll start the questions. Supreme Court. The answer was Sunil Gupta was sworn in. Which candidate opted for a book list rather than a playlist for the desert island? The real answer was Carrie Bentivolio. From the slide, which candidate's proudest moment was working with opioid epidemic? All right, the answer was really Christine Bonds. And are you registered to vote? Very good. Okay, all right, I'm gonna turn back over to you, Miss Lana. Thank you guys so much for playing.
So how'd you guys like that for the first half? You guys up there? Come on, let's make some noise. Make sure nobody's sleeping. Great. So at this time, we're going to take a little bit of a break, about a 10-minute break. So feel free to get up, stretch your legs, grab some water, some refreshments, whatever it may be, and then find yourselves back here in 10 minutes because we got more of this program for you, and it's going to be great. So I look forward to seeing you back here in a short 10 minutes. Thank you. Show me what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. You know, it never gets old how cool it is to see that from up here and seeing all the people say that back. So thank you guys so much. Now with that being said, I want to welcome back our moderator, Elizabeth Derry, please, I apologize, David Jaffe, for the second part of our program.
Great. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming back. In this part of the program, I'll be asking the candidates specific questions that allow 90 seconds for the answer, and then giving some time for a closing statement. Depending on how efficient they are in answering is how much time we'll have left for the closing statements. Each of you can say, of course, anything you want in the closing statement within the rules, but for the questions, we'd really like you to stick with the question that's being asked. And of course, none of you is the kind of candidate who would give a speech on a topic entirely different from the question. None of you, right? But just in place, please understand that I will try to redirect you if you go off, and our intrepid timers will keep the clock running while I do that, so we could use up your time. Please be fair to the other candidates and the audience by responding to the questions we ask. And thank you to all the folks, many of you in the audience submitted questions. We would have used more of them, but we thought you would all want to be home for dinner. We'll continue the pattern of who's called on first. So Cooper and I, you'll have the first shot at this one. And our question is, many college and trade school students take out large student loans. There's been much discussion in Congress and the administration about student loans and what to do about them. What, if anything, do you believe is the proper role for the federal government in lending, servicing loans, and dealing with borrowers who can't afford to pay their loans? Again, I'm asking about the federal government's role, which you would help decide as a member of Congress.
Well, I mean, one of the most outrageous things that we're seeing in our economy is just the skyrocketing costs in tuition, right? And that is not at all taxed to incomes for most people. And part of that sort of inflation in cost is in part...
So, Cooper, I'm sorry, but I asked you about student loans.
Yeah, I'm getting there. So part of that problem is the federal provision of these loans. I mean, it's often done, there's just too much money being pushed into this, and that's inflating costs. So to bring that down, I mean, we need to sort of look at the ways, I mean, at least in terms of the students that are burdened with that, I mean, the interest rates on these are ridiculous. We need to cap these at least 3%. I mean, this should not be something that people are getting rich off of on the lending side, let alone gambling with that debt and these sort of complex derivative packages. I mean, that's precisely what happened with the housing crisis, and we're on the cusp of another crisis. So that's what I would do.
Terrific, thank you.
So student loans is a very personal issue for me. Both my husband and I have student debt. It essentially runs our lives. The first thing that we need to do is that we need to provide investment, state and federal investments into 2- and 4-year colleges so that any student working a part-time job can afford to put themselves through college. Second thing we need to do, we need to increase investments and federal investments in federal programs and student grant programs like the GI Bill. The GI Bill, for every $1 that was invested, $7 was returned into the economy. We need to look at more programs that give students the resources they need to attend college. And finally, the student loan forgiveness programs, like the one that actually both my husband and I are in, that allow anyone entering into a public service job to forgive their loan after 10 years. That is currently being threatened by the federal government and Betsy DeVos, and we need to stop that. There is currently a number of teachers, social service providers, government workers that rely on this in order to enter into these careers, and if it's repealed, they're going to end up with thousands of dollars in debt that they're not going to be able to pay out of because we don't pay our teachers a lot of money.
The average student loan debt in Michigan is $30,000 a year. This is unconscionable and wrong, and how we need to tackle that is by a multitude of approaches. One, we need to address the insurance, or the interest rates rather. They're skyrocketing. They went up again last year. Congress needs to have a conversation on that. Two, we need to put forward legislation that allows for reasonable payback programs through public-private partnerships. I want to support companies who want to hire people out of college who are saddled with student loan debt, and I want to encourage those companies to support their workers and their employees in paying those loans back. And so that's through interest programs, public-private partnerships, and lastly, we need to look at making college more affordable. We need to promote free community college for all. That is legislation that we can do in the federal government, that we can implement at the statewide level. No person should not be able to obtain their educational achievement because of a cost issue. I've seen that firsthand, and it's wrong. And lastly, as somebody who's created workforce development programs and has worked a long time in advanced manufacturing, we need to support the skilled trades. We need to support the 21st century labor movement. Thank you. Sorry. Sorry.
Thank you. I was an educator, both vocational and general ed, and put my way through college using the GI Bill. I earned that. You know, if you just give somebody something, they don't take it. Well, let's put it this way. There's a difference between just getting something and giving it away to somebody who earns it. Somebody who earns it takes more pride in what they've earned. It took me a little longer to get through college, but I left college with no debt, and I earned it. And I think that's what we need to do. A lot of my opponents here said basically, what did you say? I forgot. Sorry. Yeah, the loan thing is putting children or our students in indentured servitude. There's no way out of it. They could have made a mistake in getting the wrong degree or something like that. They're stuck with this $100,000, $50,000, even a $30,000 school debt and no job. We need to fix that. Thank you.
Are we supposed to stay seated or stand up? Or
However you like.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm abiding by the rules. Well, this is a very serious problem that we face. And in the short term, there are some things that we should immediately be able to do at the federal level, like having the federal government invest more funding into higher education so that community college education can immediately become free. Longer term, we need to establish some universities, four-year universities with free education. Certainly all colleges and higher education should be debt-free. And I think the other things that we can do specifically regarding student loans is making sure that the federal government no longer profits off of interest rates. Currently, the federal government actually gets a profit, if you will. They charge more than it costs them to administrate. That's wrong. Secondly, we should make sure that we change current federal law so that student loan debt is dischargeable in bankruptcy. And the third thing I would mention is we've got to avoid the privatization of student loans. Obviously, the current administration wants to go down that road further. That's only going to drive up interest rates.
This is a huge problem. It is now more expensive for many people to go to college than it is to own a home. Generations ago, we made a commitment to our students to say that, look, every student will be prepared with the education that they need in order to get a good paying job. And generations ago, when that commitment was made, that for many people just meant a high school education. Today, we need to go further than that. Every child deserves access to a higher education. When it comes to school loans, we need to, number one, we need to make sure that students are able to refinance their student loans. Number two, we need to provide tuition-free community college to every student. And number three, we need to stop turning our public education into a big business. If you want to make a buck, don't do it with our children's future.
So when we're talking about the student loans, I think I'm fortunate and happy that we finished paying off my wife's student loans last year, so that's fantastic. We've heard some good ideas as we've gone down the line. It's extremely important that folks be allowed to refinance student debt. Now, how many folks in this room are paying a mortgage on a home? And how many folks in this room have refinanced that mortgage? Or refinanced business debt, or refinanced automotive debt? Why is it that everything can be refinanced except for students' debt? It just doesn't even make sense. When we approach government with a fact-based analysis, when we operate with decency, when we operate with confidence, then we take note of the fact that we're talking about students, and we're talking about creating a strong future middle class. We're talking about creating a future for these folks, and we don't have to focus just on four-year universities. We can focus on community colleges. We can focus on investment in the trade. But look, we have to be able to refinance student debt, and student debt has to be dischargeable in bankruptcy.
Thank you. So for the next question, Andy Stevens will start. And this question has three parts. If you win this election, you'll represent over 700,000 people. So of course, you really won't be able to get to know all of them. How do you plan to gather information on your constituents' views on the issues that come before you? How often will you hold town halls? And will you commit to opening your calendar to the public so that constituents can know with whom you are meeting?
I absolutely plan to open my calendar to the public. I invite you to send me invitations. We will hold town halls as much as you guys want. And how I plan to be this congressional representative of listening and exchanging with all of you is based on the following. When we win this district in December, we will have a community meeting we will have a series of community meetings. The first one, we will invite every mayor, township supervisor, and a representative to that meeting. Why? So we can go to Washington, D.C. knowing exactly what this district wants. 2, we're going to have a meeting with students regularly, but I want to do this before we get into the Capitol. We will do this regularly, though, when we're in office, engaging with students, engaging with educators. I made the commitment to all of you that I want to sit on the House Education and Workforce Committee. How do we create education policy? From the ground up, from the district up. So educators, students together will come and bring their ideas. And also, we will use the tools within government, the technology that we saw here today, so that I can directly hear from you. I like to tell everybody I am running to be your listener in chief. I want to hear from you. I know that we might not always agree on every single topic, but you better believe my door, my line will always be open to you.
That's a great question. While I was the congressman for the 11th district, we won 2 constituent awards. No other candidate, no other Michigan delegate has achieved that. Rated second most transparent member of Congress, because when Democrats protested outside my office, my staff called me up and said, "Hey, Congressman, there's a bunch of Democrats protesting outside your office." So I said, "Great, make sure they have water, coffee, and let them use the restroom and tell them to make an appointment." We had 26 issue-specific roundtables that talked to teachers, dental hygienists, UAW, and anybody else that wanted to come in and hold a forum, or we didn't hold as many town halls, but we held issue-specific roundtables. 2 constituent awards. That's a bipartisan award for people that wanted to take the time to talk to their congressman. Some people will make promises. Look, I actually did it. When you called my office, we did a spot check to make sure that anybody who contacted my office got a response from my office within 2 weeks or less. 2 weeks or less. Not a month, not 3 weeks, not 6 months later, 2 weeks or less. We hold the record for that. God bless you. Thank you very much.
You can count on me to do everything I can to be transparent and accountable to the voters and taxpayers. And you don't have to take my word for that, because I have a track record of doing that. When I was House Democratic leader, a Freedom of Information Act question was sent to all 4 legislative leaders. And some of you may not know that the legislature is exempt from the Freedom of Information Act. I was the only one of the 4 legislative leaders to respond to that Freedom of Information Act. I've co-sponsored legislation in the legislature that's passed out of the House that would ensure that the legislature and the governor are subject to the Freedom of Information Act. Sadly, that's been stopped in the Senate. I have always held 2 open coffee hours a month as a state representative, where people don't need an appointment. They can swing by at a moment's notice, and I'll be there to talk with them. Those have always been hallmarks of my service. I know that I work for the voters and the taxpayers, not the other way around. And you can count on me to regularly hold town halls in this district, unlike the current congressperson who seems to be terrified of town halls. And the last thing I would say is, I have done this for 15 years. I want all of you to have my cell phone number. It's my personal cell, 248-425-7525, 248-425-7525. It hasn't changed in 15 years. It's not going to change when I'm in office.
If you want to imagine what I'm going to be like as your congressman, I want you to imagine Dave Trott, and then I want you to imagine the exact opposite of that. Listen, the history that I bring to the table here is that I have spent my life trying to serve middle-class families with good customer service. The last thing that I created was a healthcare company called Rise. What we were doing is we were reaching people in underserved communities that needed better quality access to healthcare. We teamed up with Michelle Obama to make that happen. Now, I believe very strongly that when you talk about the patient-practitioner relationship, it needs to be something that is always accessible. And And one of the things we gave to all of our patients is the opportunity to be able to text somebody at any hour of the day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and get the response they need and get the care they need. I want to bring that level of discipline to what we need here in the 11th District, which means that you have an open line of communication, you have frequent town halls. The last thing I'll say is this: I've been teaching once a week at different classrooms around the district, whether that be high schools, community colleges, public universities, is work that I really enjoy doing. I'm going to make sure that even after elected, I would continue to do that, being in classrooms, being with our students, and hearing what they have to say as well.
Can I just ask the rest of you if you could include the answer to the question about opening your calendar in your answer?
I would love to open my calendar. We signed the town hall pledge in this campaign, and I think, frankly, the pledge itself might be insufficient because it promised to hold 4 town halls every year. We hold in this campaign 3 to 4 coffee hours, happy hours, and house parties every single week. If you aren't running this because you have an interest in listening to people, then you shouldn't be running at all. To have members of Congress who are terrified to speak to constituents is the opposite of what should be happening. I see some faces here that were there at Dave Trott's Blizzard Town Hall, one and only. I was there as well, outside protesting with you. I snuck in the side door of the hotel because that was the way to get in. And I was curious to hear what he would say and how he would deal with people, and he had no interest being there whatsoever. It couldn't have been any more obvious. The first thing we did in this campaign is invest in our field operation so that we could make sure that we were reaching out to every nook and cranny of this district, this ridiculously gerrymandered district. And that's what we've been able to do, knocking on doors in the middle of January, no matter how cold. Didn't like that part so much, but we still did it because it's important, because if you don't listen to the people, you can't represent them. So we are happy to open our calendar. We will have constant town halls. We will have multiple district field offices as well to make sure that folks don't have to drive so far to get around the difficult district to have their voice heard as frequently as possible.
That first question was about how I'm going to learn about the voters, right?
How are you going to learn? You're going to get to know your constituents and gather information on their views.
You guys heard about Cambridge Analytica? I'm not going to talk to them. I'm going to come talk to you. Because that's something a little bit different. We're all up here talking about listening to you. And that's integral to what I'm doing. I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars from people you've never heard of. I'm actually counting on a collaborative effort here. So what that means is I'm going to be out trying to find civic leaders who want to get involved and grassroots this thing and have a real living democracy. And some way that I'm going to keep this alive is I'm not going to just have town halls once I win. Once I win, I'm going to have a civic leader in every single city or township who's going to organize citizens' workshops once a month where they will bring people together to discuss nonpartisan solutions so that we can be proud of this country and hopeful for a future. Because voting Democrat or Republican is not going to change these things. It's on us. This is our government. We have not been paying attention. You can't vote for somebody to solve that. It involves you, so I want your help. Let's connect.
So when I was working as district director for State Representative Gino Polidori, I was in charge of setting up our district meetings. We held monthly coffee hours, regular town halls, and we're at almost every single event that we were ever invited to. And that's absolutely how I plan to run my office as a congresswoman as well. One of the first things I did on the campaign before there was a town hall pledge is I pledged to hold 4 town halls a year. Because that is how I've served in my entire career, is working with the public and working with the people that put me in office. And finally, as a congressperson, yes, we're in DC a lot, but also we have these. And more than just calling people and texting people, there's so many ways to get to the public. And I plan on leveraging social media, Twitter, Facebook Lives, Instagram, Snapchat, for those of you that are on Snapchat, to be able to communicate and have a mode of communicating with the people that I serve. Because here's one thing that I know for sure: if I don't do it, I know all of you guys are going to come after me. So if nothing else, you certainly set a precedent reminders to my husband.
Thank you all. First up for our third question will be Tim Brown. So the party leaders in the House of Representatives are getting a lot of press these days, and they're featured each year in a lot of negative campaign ads. If you're elected, will you support the current leaders in your party and why? So, for our Republican, will you support Kevin McCarthy for Speaker if you're in the majority, or for Minority Leader if you're in the minority? Democrats, would you support Nancy Pelosi? Mr. Nye, I think you get an opportunity to talk about leadership here, the leadership and what you would do about it as an independent. Please understand that this is not an opportunity for the Republican to discuss Ms. Pelosi or the Democrats to discuss Mr. McCarthy or Paul Ryan. Please stick with your own team. And if you wouldn't support the current leader, please tell us who you would support or what your criteria would be for picking someone to support. And so, Mr. Nye, maybe you have a sense of where you would caucus or can tell us about what you think should be the criteria for Speaker of the House.
As I've said publicly and privately before, I have certainly a lot of respect for Speaker Pelosi's or Minority Leader Pelosi's right now leadership over the years and her service in public office. But as I've also said publicly and privately, I will not support her to continue to be the Democratic leader in the U.S. House. I think that we need new blood in that position. I think we need somebody who is going to unify the party and win over new voters to the Democratic Party. That's something that I think is critically important. We see this new energy out there. We see a lot of new people getting involved. We need to keep that momentum going, and I think it's time for a new leader. In terms of who I might support, I've already outlined some of the criteria of who I would be looking to support. I think it's premature at this point to pick any one individual, given that the potential leadership race for House Democratic leader is almost a year out still. But again, we need a visionary leadership, a unifying personality, and somebody who is going to fight for the progressive values that the Democratic Party needs to be standing for.
I would support Speaker Pelosi. I do think that we need to start moving towards the next generation of leadership. One of the most important things I think we need to do as a Democratic Party is to set a precedent for not accepting corporate PAC money to fund our elections. I think it's incredibly vital. What I hear from Democrats sometimes is that we need to do that in order to level the playing field with Republicans. I don't buy that. We can do this the right way, we can win these elections, and we can do it in a way that fits our progressive values.
As someone from Michigan, this is what I know. This is my home. I've never met Speaker Pelosi. I'm not from California. And so, I don't have that direct personal relationship. I will support the Democratic leader, whether it's Speaker Pelosi or it's another representative. As a freshman coming into Congress, as a new member of Congress, I would not put myself out there so much to think that I know better than everyone else. I'd like to learn from those who've been doing this for a long time and have that insight at the same time as bringing forward a different perspective, a local perspective that comes from years of being a part of this community, that comes from experience of creating jobs here in Michigan, that comes from providing health care here in Michigan. A track record that's a Michigan-based track record that can work with whichever speaker the Democratic Party feels is best to work for.
Part of why I'm running as an independent is so I could have some freedom to talk about this. I did not want to be beholden to parties or PACs or party leadership once I win. Because anybody up here can say, I'll be an independent, I'll do this. It's not up to them. If they step out of line, their party will crush them and they'll have one term. That's how it works. It's unsustainable. And if you want real change, you need to recognize that it's not going to come from within these parties. We voted for Obama, we voted for Trump. It's more than one person. It's on us. We need real reform, and only independents can provide that. So that's what we need to do. And in terms of who I would support in leadership, I'll tell you right now, I consider myself a conservative. But I'm disgusted by the ideologies that are guiding us. For the Republicans, it's this free market fundamentalism, which is nothing but a lie. For the Democrats, it's this big government, which obviously doesn't work. So I want to work with people who understand the need for a new way, that sees where the state can help and where private interests actually help. So I would, as a conservative, support a moderate Democrat and partner with them to try and provide an antidote to our polarizing discourse, because we cannot continue this way.
So I'm a progressive, and an unapologetic progressive for that matter, and I want to see Democratic leadership that isn't afraid to stand by progressive values and talk about progressive values openly. I don't know who that is at this point, but there are some things that I'm disappointed in. Currently, I don't see Democratic leadership that's ready to come out strong for progressive values, and I'm getting tired of Democrats in Washington who look and sound like Republicans. Finally, the average age of our Democratic leadership is 72 years old. And I think that needs to change. I think we need new, fresh voices who are representing the Democratic Party, because we talk a lot about needing a new message, but I think we need new messengers. So thank you.
I was working in the White House when health care was passed, and I have deep and profound respect for Leader Pelosi. At this time, she doesn't have my support as Speaker. And let me tell you why. Some of these are points that were just made. We have an age problem. We have a Midwest problem. And so I am very interested in nominating somebody to be the Speaker of the House. Should we have this blue wave? Should we take back the House in November, which I think we're going to do? And I believe we need to elect somebody as our next Speaker who speaks to Midwestern values and the fight that we're in right here at home. And that's a fight for a 21st century labor movement and an economy that's inclusive. And I believe that it also focuses on the diversity that's in our party. So I'm going to be a little bit more clear. I'll tell you who I like. I really like Tim Ryan. I think Tim Ryan of Youngstown, Ohio is an inspiring leader. I think that he has a focus on manufacturing that I deeply appreciate, and I think he would do a great job as the next Speaker of our House. Thank you.
I actually had the opportunity to do just that. But on my first day of the job in Congress, I walked out on the Speaker's balcony at night, overlooking the Washington Mall and the Washington Monument, all lit up in its splendor. Door behind me opened up, and it was Speaker Boehner. And he says, "How's it going, Kerry?" And I said, "Well, sir, it's pretty overwhelming." And he kind of chuckled, took me in his office. We had some small talk, and I said, "Mr. Speaker, I'm never going to lie to you. I'm never going to surprise you. I'm not going to tarnish the office. I'm not going to vote for an omnibus bill. I'm not going to vote to raise the debt. And I'm not going to vote to raise taxes. Other than that, I'm a Republican." And at the end, that's exactly what he said, is you honored your thing. Now, the way it works in Congress is there's a closed session, not even staffers are permitted in the room. And all the members of Congress vote for their nomination for Speaker. My nominee in that closed session was not nominated. But on the floor of Congress, you're required to stand up for your nominee and say, "Speaker Boehner," or whoever you're supporting. That's how it works. I think the next Speaker of the House is going to be Mark Meadows or Jim Jordan. And those are two great people that are very honest, they're very focused, and they listen. That's how it's going to work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, so, for another question, we will ask Dean Haberman. You're first on this one. You've alluded to this already today. Clean water has been a critical issue in our state, from lead in Flint to water shutoffs in Detroit to contaminated groundwater in Midland and Ann Arbor. What do you believe is the right role, if any, again, for the federal government in assuring that citizens have access to safe water for drinking and household use, and that businesses have access to water that's safe for industrial and commercial use.
Sure. So I actually have an editorial that came out in the Detroit News yesterday on the subject, comparing, contrasting the difference in treatment from a city that our state government poisoned and a giant international company that's able to profit from our valuable natural resources. I believe that access to accessible level of drinking water, clean, safe drinking water, that's a human right. Our water needs to be held in a public trust. Look, years from now, folks are going to be staring at Michigan, surrounded by the Great Lakes, looking for access to our clean drinking water, our safe drinking water. And the notion that we would allow a private company to spend just $200 a year to pump out 400 gallons a minute of Michigan water to then bottle, because in the Great Lakes Compact there is a loophole that allows the bottling of our water in quantities, I think it's 5.2 or 5.7 gallons or less. As long as you put it in small containers, you can pump it, you can package it, you can take it, and you can sell it at a profit. At the same time that you disregard an entire city that was poisoned by our state government and tell them, no, you no longer get free bottles of water. That is not decent, that is not competent, and that is not the country we can ever seek to be.
I'm really glad we got asked this question. It ties to my last point where I left off. We need a real alternative to, Republican and Democratic ideology. And on this specific question, we have a great case. Because as Mr. Haberman mentioned, they're paying $200 and they're making $344 million a year in sales. What are we getting for that? This is a common natural resource. The federal government, in this case and more, should be taking a 10% royalty on these resources, directing it to a permanent American fund that can provide for clean drinking water, drivable roads, affordable education, affordable care. I mean, this might sound progressive. You guys should like this. No? Yeah. Well, look, this type of thing goes on with all of our resources, more than just water, across the board. And so we need to make sure that the state is collecting rent on these resources that are not being tapped, including its unused buildings. There are 45 unused buildings that are owned by the federal government that cost you $2 billion a year to manage. Let's rent it out. Let's let the regulations stopping us from doing the right thing. And I say this sounds like a progressive idea, to reduce inequality and save the American dream through a democratic permanent wealth fund. But this is a conservative idea. This started in Texas in the 1860s. Sarah Palin in Alaska, she did the same thing with the Alaskan Permanent Wealth Fund. That today, that's $55 billion, and they pay a $2,000 dividend to every Alaskan resident. Check it out.
All right, this is not a Democrat or Republican ideology, so I completely disagree. Clean water is a human right, and that should be as simple as that. It frightens me that this is even a question that you have to ask, but I understand why you have to ask it given what's happened in our state. There's a number of things that are contributing to this. First of all, we need to invest back into our infrastructure. It's one of the major things that's causing us not to have clean tap water. E. coli was found after doing some testing in Warren. That's a lot closer than Flint. We had a water main break in Novi just 6 months ago. This is an issue that affects us all and should absolutely be treated as a human right, and part of that is investing back into our infrastructure. And finally, in terms of what's happening with Nestle, if we did the same thing with gasoline and went and charged the people at the rate to buy a Nestle bottle of water, it would be about $8 a gallon for gas. If that happened, we would be in uproar. And so there needs to be greater visibility for these issues, and we need to ensure that water as a human right is what we talk about and all we talk about.
Is there a role for the federal government in that?
I'm sorry?
What's the role for the federal government?
To invest in infrastructure, to ensure that we invest in infrastructure.
The ideology behind this is quite simple. It is people's health, it is clean waterways over profit. We need advocates, and we need to fully fund our Environmental Protection Agency. And in fact, we need to fund it a little bit more. We need to make sure that we have the right science, the right research going on, particularly right here in Michigan. I am gravely dismayed and gravely concerned about what is going on. The things that we know are unconscionable. Flint was a rockbed moment in this country, and it is still going on. My blood is boiling. I want to hold a hearing, David. If you want to ask about the role that the federal government can play, we can hold these hearings right here in Michigan, and we can shine a light. We can also shine a light on what's taking place with microplastics that are making their way into our waterways, something that we're almost losing control of. Again, we need a fully funded Environmental Protection Agency. I will be voting for that. I will be proposing legislation if it's not already there, and I will be an advocate for our water and for our environment right here in Michigan. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, did you know in Highland Park right now there's an old water treatment plant that is being unused and cannot be used because of some of the politicians here in the state of Michigan? Water is our #1 resource. It must be protected. It must be quality water. How come then the Highland Park plant can't be reopened when private investors are willing to spend $36 to $50 million to rebuild it? The corruption in Highland Park. Everybody had their hand out. The federal government can come in and basically take that over through the law and I forget the title, but they can actually take it over. Say again? Thank you. Eminent domain. Thank you very much. And redo that, rebuild it, so that we have more clean water in Michigan. Why aren't you out there calling attention to that? If you're demanding clean, fresh water, we have the capabilities to do that. Why do we only have 1 or 2 plants that clean our wastewater and everything else from our sewers and industrial waste? Why aren't you screaming about that? Does the federal government have a duty to do that? Yes, we do. The federal government, us, we the people, have to demand clean water. As your next congressman, that is the second thing on my agenda. Day 2. I have day 1 already covered. Thank you very much.
As a state representative, I have never shied away from going toe-to-toe against the special interests that have put profits before people. I did it with the Flint water crisis, where I was the only legislator in either party to call on the governor to resign as a result of his malfeasance. I am doing it now. A colleague of mine from Ann Arbor and I, when we got word of this Nestle boondoggle a week and a half ago, we've been putting together legislation to make sure that that kind of abuse and that kind of special interest giveaway to corporations never happens again in our state. At the federal level, there are 4 things that the federal government needs to do to address these problems. Number 1, the federal government needs to invest more in infrastructure, including underground infrastructure, to make sure that we never have another Flint water crisis or Macomb County sinkhole. Number 2, the federal government needs to put in place a law that guarantees every American a legal right to access to clean water, and make sure that governments, local, state, and the federal government have an obligation to ensure that happens. Number 3, federal officials need to work with the states in the Great Lakes Water Compact to make sure that it's amended to prevent this kind of future withdrawal from the Great Lakes Basin. And 4th, and finally, fully funding the EPA is important, but Congress has to exercise oversight on Scott Pruitt, the fox who's guarding the henhouse.
I think the best thing we can do for our Great Lakes is to remove Scott Pruitt from office. Billionaires are getting tax breaks. The people of Flint are getting poisoned water. The first thing we need to do at a federal level is we need to end tax breaks to big oil companies We need to take that money, we need to invest it in the infrastructure, into protecting our environment, and to finally making Michigan the home for what I believe can be a thriving clean energy industry. You know that Michigan is the only state in the country that is both top 5 in manufacturing and top 5 in research. Other places around the world want to be the home for what happens next. I say it happens right here. Let's create thousands of good-paying jobs. Let's protect our environment, and let's reduce our dependence on foreign oil. And yeah, let's get rid of Scott Pruitt.
Shut down line 5.
Shut down line 5.
Thank you. That's terrific, everyone. Appreciate it. So we now have an opportunity for you to pick the topic and say whatever it is you think. We'll ask Ms. Saad to start with this. For the closing statements, looking at the time, we've got 2 minutes for each of you for the closing statement. The floor is yours.
So is it closing statement right now? Or?
Closing statement for other questions, or coming right to the end of our 2 hours.
Okay, closing statements, okay. Well, first, thank you all for being here and thank you for putting this on. I launched my campaign in July of 2017, and in September of 2017, Dave Trott announced his retirement. And I'd like to say I scared him away, but I really know it's because of all of you here today. I got in this race from the beginning knowing that it can flip, knowing that a Democrat can win this seat, and I'm committed to doing that all the way through November. I'm the daughter of immigrants. My parents came here over 40 years ago, very simply in search of the American dream. And they found that here in Michigan, in Southeast Michigan. And when it came time for me to choose a career, I chose a career in public service because I want to protect that American dream that brought them here, that allowed me and my 5 brothers and siblings to be raised here. And so I spent an entire career, I worked in state government. I started my career here actually in District 11 as a field organizer, went on to state government where I got to pass foster care reform and ban texting while driving. From there I went on to the Department of Homeland Security under the Obama administration, where I worked on community policing efforts, counterterrorism efforts, in an effort to protect our borders, because I was impacted by 9/11 and believe that we can protect this country without marginalizing or singling out communities. And finally, I came back here to Michigan almost 3 years ago to begin working for Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan as his first director of immigrant affairs. And in that role, we weren't just doing immigrant affairs, we were doing economic development. Because this is the contribution of immigrants, and this is how we need to look at our economies and really creating an inclusive and integrated economy that allows everyone to be part of it. And I've had a whole career of problem solving, consensus building, and bringing people together in very challenging times to find solutions. And that's why I'm running for Congress, because I know it can be done, and I know that we need better leadership in Washington. And so I thank you for being here, and I ask for your support.
Thank you so much. It is such a privilege to stand up here with all of you and the indivisible community who put this on. I am also proud to stand up here with my fellow candidates, particularly my fellow Democrats. We are smart, we are diverse, we are on message, and we are going to flip this district come November. In part, this month is very significant for me, April. I announced my campaign a year ago this month, and I did so because this was the most American thing I could think to do in the wake of the Trump presidency. It has been critical for me to stand here alongside all of you over this journey because the drum is beating, a new message and a new time is coming. I am a proud daughter of Oakland County. I am a proud daughter of parents who are entrepreneurs who taught me the notion of grit and hard work. I am also somebody who has worked at the intersection of federal government and industry and academia for outcomes. That was serving as the chief of staff on the U.S. Auto Rescue. That was also going on to create the country's first training program for digital manufacturing and design technology. They were writing Michigan off 10 years ago. But if you look at us today, we are vibrant, we are exciting, and we are an innovative place to live, work, and raise a family. what I want to do from the nation's capital, is I want to show everybody what we are made of. And I want to be a partner for you. So that is why I, Haley Stevens, am running for this seat. I want to take this just one step granular, though, because David did give me an opportunity to talk about another issue. And I know this community cares so much about health care. And I want to let you know, and I'm out of time.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's okay. I wasn't keeping track of it, but I'm going to vote for good health care legislation. Thank you.
Let's see, I made a list. Proven record, protecting your most personal health and financial information with the Safe and Secure Federal Websites Act. Education, passing a bill in the House that improved education for every student in America. Roads, passed a bill, actually became part of a larger bill in the highway infrastructure funding bill. Both Democrats and Republicans voted for. Every single bill that I offered in Congress came from an idea or suggestion from people just like you. It wasn't, we didn't care whether you were a Democrat, Republican, a Libertarian, or an Independent. You were welcome in my office. Proven record. We had a mobile office that traveled the district, listening to you if you were willing to stop in and talk. Getting an appointment with the real congressman, not some group hearing where everybody shouts out their concerns and their complaints, but focused attention on addressing the issues. God gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth so I could listen twice as much. Protecting America. No other member of Congress served in Vietnam and Iraq. I have a proven record serving for my country as well as in Congress. This district, the 11th district, will stay Republican, whether you like it or not. I have a feeling that I was coming here today and going to have a lot of progressive Democrats out in the audience. But I got to tell you, you've been a wonderful audience, being the only Republican representing the 11th district today. I want you to know I thank you for your kind treatment, and I especially appreciate your decorum. God bless every one of you.
Winning elections is extremely important. But I want to be really clear. That's not the end goal. Winning elections is a means to the real end goal of enacting good policies and putting in place progressive policies that will power this country into the future of equality and opportunity for everyone. And we need a congressperson who's going to hit the ground running in Washington, who's going to be able to work with other legislators and with all branches of government to make sure that we're able to put in place progressive policies and actually get things done. And keep in mind, that's not going to be easy, even when we take a majority in the U.S. House, and believe me, Kerry, we are. But even when we take a majority in the U.S. House, the Senate is likely to still be controlled by Republicans. The presidency is still going to be controlled by Republicans. And so you've heard from all of us Democrats up here. And frankly, we all are progressive. We all mostly agree on all the issues, give or take. What really sets us apart is whether we're going to be able to get things done in Congress. And as the only Democratic candidate in this race who has won an election, as the only Democratic candidate in this race who has ever held elected office, I have a proven track record of getting things done. As the House Democratic leader, I worked in a Republican-dominated environment to increase the minimum wage and index it to inflation, to increase the renewable energy standard in this state, and what I'm most proud of, to expand Medicaid coverage so that 650,000 Michiganders have health insurance today who didn't just 4 years ago. You can trust me to hit the ground running, to engage in hard-nosed negotiation with the Republicans, and make sure that we actually deliver results for the American people. Thank you.
I'm running for Congress because the most important thing that I can do for my children and for your children and your grandchildren is to take this country back from Donald Trump. I'm standing for a progressive agenda, healthcare for all, a world-class education for every child, and equal pay for equal work. And when I get together with Republicans like Kerry, one of the questions that I always get inevitably is, all right, yeah, you build businesses, you balance budgets, how are you going to pay for all of this? It's Republicans' favorite question. And I typically answer that question with another question. Why did we just give a multi-trillion-dollar tax cut to the richest of the 1%? And here's another question for you. How much did Boeing pay last year in federal taxes? Zero. How much did Verizon pay last year in federal taxes? Zero. How much did General Electric pay last year in federal taxes? Republicans like to say they like handouts. Why did they just give the biggest handout in American history to the largest of the corporations and the richest of the 1%? Meanwhile, the average Michigan family has about $100 of disposable income, and yet companies like Amway, Goldman Sachs, and Nestle can spend $100 million to influence an election? Is that a democracy? No, it is not. No, it is not. Which is why this campaign, my campaign, is fueled by people. Without taking a dime of corporate money, we are going to build a movement, we are going to cross the finish line in November, and we are going to take this country back from Donald Trump.
So it's great to be here in Royal Oak, up the street from where my family owned and operated Haberman Fabrics for decades, where I learned hard work. When I was old enough to sweep a floor, I swept it. When I was old enough to pull patterns, I pulled them, cut fabric, and that's my roots, that's my background. Up the street from the Magic Bag, where I worked with my brother for 15 years. This community, whether it's Royal Oak, even though it's just outside our gerrymandered district, or the 11th, this is my home, and that's why I'm running. In that history of small business, you learn that your ideas aren't always the only good ideas. And I believe that policy disagreements, reasonable policy disagreements, are the best way to have great legislation that actually helps people. But all of us, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, all of us, have to demand that our government is both decent and competent, because if it's not, it can't function, and it can't deliver results for the people. Look, no matter what's happening in D.C. right now, on the Hill, in the White House, and in the courts, we know who we are, and we don't need to make America anything, because we're already great. We just need to act like it. Look, I know I'm the outside candidate. And there's some folks who say it's a disadvantage not to know all the lobbyists and all the special interests and the political lifers. But those folks don't get it, because that's been the problem with our politics for years. That's why Democrats for years have lost winnable elections. This is not about a job for me. This is not about an opportunity for me. This is about crafting government that works for all of us, and gets results for all of us. Healthcare that works for all of us, an economy that works for all of us, environmental protections that work for all of us, gun safety protections that work for all of us. The blue wave won't come just if we wish for it to happen. The blue wave comes when we run authentic candidates with a track record of results here in this district. Thank you.
Thank you to Indivisible for setting this whole thing up, our moderators. I'm sorry everybody's been ignoring you this whole time. And, in the spirit of inclusivity, I want to say it's been a pleasure to be on stage for all of you, regardless of your party. But the reality here is that your government's been hijacked. You have a two-party state that's owned and operated by special interests and big donors that serves itself instead of citizens. I'm running to give voters their voice back, because everybody wants to make America better. It's not great right now. There's a lot of work to do. But the fact is, Democrats and Republicans can't deliver on this, no matter what they say. The status quo empowers and profits them, and we pay for it. Taxpayers are this country's stakeholders. But what's the return on investment? Declining education, mounting debt, crumbling roads, and more corporate welfare. The elites here on both sides want to distract you. Look at the news. Look on both sides. They're doing the same thing. They want and need us to believe that America is divided. But that's a distraction. It's propaganda and a myth manufactured by the powerful to divide and conquer the powerless. It covers up our common ground to practical solution and hides a real divide here, which is good citizens against bad government. You don't need another script-reading robot, another millionaire, or another lawyer in Congress. There's enough of them. And how does it work? What we need are public servants with integrity that you can trust. So what do you want this year? Do you want a puppet or an independent? A lapdog or a warhorse? If you want gridlock, vote red or blue. If you want a voice, vote independent.
Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Benevolio felt that he was particularly called out by name on a point, and so I've offered him 15 seconds, but no more, to respond to that point.
Thank you. I would never ask that question, how Democrats are going to pay for all those free things, free college, and so on and so forth. They already know the answer to it. So you shouldn't have said that and grouped me in with all the other Republicans. I know exactly how we're going to pay for it, or you're going to pay for it, or he's going to pay for it, by taxing my grandchildren, and not one of them is 12 years old.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
That's true. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. First, to our candidates. Thanks to our candidates. And all the people in the planning committee who worked to put this together. Thank you to you for being a terrific audience and for your terrific decorum and respect for the candidates. And do you have more to add?
My friends, ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for yourselves for being such a great audience. A round of applause for our candidates. A round of applause for all the organizers here today. I don't know about you guys, but I've been to many candidate forums, and I want to say this was probably not only one of the most educational, but one of the most fun candidate forums. So another round of applause for that. Before you guys leave, I want to bring to attention the final thing that we're going to need from you guys. We need your help. On your way out, we're going to ask everybody to leave through these side doors. You're going to be getting straws. Alright? On your way out, make sure to collect these straws, and at the end of the long hallway, you'll find boxes. We need you guys to vote. Not who you guys are going to vote for, but let us know who you thought won today's forum. And again, walk out these doors, collect the straw, and put it in the box of the individual that you think won today's forum. And on that note, thank you so much. Make sure you get out to vote, get people out to vote, and get involved, get engaged. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. Drive safe.